So welcome back for brew number 3.
We are trying 2 different things this time. I know, big risk. We are going to try and use our own mixture of grains. Same recipe, but...
The kit was great, but just buy our own grains, crush them ourselves, use the same recipe.
And because we have a stove that won't allow us to keep a nice constant temperature for our mash, we have been experimenting with different ways to keep it at a constant temperature. This time we are going to be trying the Bubba.
I made a Bubba keg mini mash tun, which is essentially just a 3 US gallon Bubba keg that I bought some parts at the local homebrew store and put it together to make it into a mash tun like all the guys use for 5-gallon batches. So we'll do a batch Sparge.
It's a Glen original.
It is a Glen original.
Okay.
It is the Bubba keg mini mash tun. So why don't you weigh out the grains? And one of the things is the yeast, and we've pitched the yeast the last couple of times directly into the wort, which has worked out fine, but I'm going to try and make a place to rehydrate the yeast before we put it into the wort. So I've just boiled some water to sterilize and deoxygenate it. And so I'm just going to put it into a measuring cup, cover it with plastic wrap, and over the next couple of hours as we're mashing, it will come to room temperature and be ready to rehydrate the yeast.
Okay, so I have 80 grams of the 2-row. I'm now going to put in 110 grams of the Kiln.
800 grams. 0.8 kilos, 800 grams.
Oh. You're writing.
Also, while we're measuring this out, I'm boiling some water to preheat the Bubba keg mini mash tun so that we can get some thermal mass in it before we do the mashing.
Have you thought about where I'm putting this once I've measured it?
Yes, we'll put it into our brand new roller mill.
Ah. So that's kind of fun. How did you decide? You did all the research. How did you decide what grinding to do? Because I noticed there's a few settings on here.
For mashing in a mash tun like this, everybody says to use 0.05, because if it's too fine and like flour, then it gets all sticky and gummy and the wort doesn't drain off. The guys who do brew in a bag, they all use or say that you can use a finer grind because the fabric for the bag keeps it a nice filter.
Okay.
So that you don't get that stuck sparge. Apparently a stuck sparge is a problem. And I've seen a lot of brewers, they hook that to a drill. Bubba keg mini mash tun. So
you preheated it.
It's preheated. Our strike water is at the correct temperature. And we're going to do batch Sparge. So this is just under half of the water for the Sparge.
Grains?
Grains go in, and I'll stir as you pour. So inside of this is what's called a kettle filter. It's just a metal filter that will help set the grain bed and strain the grains out of the wort. Great. And so by batch Sparge, I mean that water goes in, then we'll drain it out, and then we'll put the next amount of water in, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then drain it out. So it's not like a continuous Sparge where you're sort of pouring water in over and over again.
Okay.
Put the lid on. And the timer.
Some of those lids.
The timer is 1 hour. So that's it. An hour on the first mash. So
I'm going to prep the grain bed to create it into a filter, so you would crank the lid off.
I think that's called Vorloff.
Vorloff.
Don't quote me, but I think that's what it's called. And so the Sparge water, we're trying to hit 170 on the Sparge water, so let's see where we are. 169, so we'll be ready. So I think the idea here is that we're just supposed to not have
Steps
big pieces of grains in it. And then you just pour that in slowly so you don't disturb the grain inside.
Dribble, dribble. Alright, so that looks pretty good.
I think that's good. Okay.
Alright, so I just...
So you drain that out.
Da-da-da.
Oh. We should have put that hose on. There's something about hot side aeration. You're not supposed to get too much oxygen in it before you boil it.
Okay.
But I'm not completely sure. So the next one we'll put the hose on.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of problem that'll create. Shut it off.
Well, here. Here's how you stop it.
Okay. So I think the sparge water is up to temp.
Okay, so I'll close it down.
Yeah, close it down. We'll pour
Put the
this.
hose on.
Put the hose on. No, don't put the hose on yet because we're gonna have to vorloff it again with the next.
Okay.
With the next water.
All right.
So tap's closed.
Yes. And that sits in there for how long? Minutes?
This goes in for 15 minutes. Okay. So give it a bit of a stir. Pop the lid back on. 15 minutes on the clock.
Right.
So,
repeat process.
Repeat the process. Let me take the lid off so that it...
Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine.
There you go.
So that's definitely got a lot of...
Cool. So we should end up with probably... I think we're shooting for just over 6 liters. So there we go. We got 6 liters.
So just take the hose off. All right.
Okay, so just stir the two together.
No, it's got to cool anyway.
Yeah, it's good. We'll just leave it on the counter and let it do its thing.
All right.
So we'll get the wort into the kettle.
Tidy up time.